Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today for our webinar titled Making the Shift to eProcurement. And we're so lucky to have UT Health San Antonio here with us today to kind of share their experience with us. Just one second here. First and foremost, if you have questions, we really encourage you to participate. There's a Q&A box where you can answer your questions. Sorry, not answer, where you can enter your questions. Please feel free to enter them at any time during the webinar, and we will answer them either throughout the webinar as they come up, or we'll be sure that we leave a little bit of time at the end to get to all of your questions. But we definitely encourage you to participate, so please take advantage of that. I also want to run you guys quickly through the agenda today. So what you can expect to hear from us is, first and foremost, we're going to talk a little bit about UT Health San Antonio, and we're going to discover their journey to eProcurement. We're also going to dig a little bit into what caused the shift to eProcurement. We're just going to get a bit of a clearer understanding for what the catalyst was for change and how they moved from their manual process into eProcurement, just kind of looking at that journey together. Then we're really lucky because Chris, who's on the line with us, who I'm going to introduce in just a moment, is going to show off some of what their platform looks like. And then we're going to quickly look at some future uses and areas of exploration, and then we're going to turn it over to Q&A and then get to all of your questions. So just a quick introduction here. My name is Maria. You can see my picture there on the screen, so you can kind of put a face to the name. I'm the moderator, and this is my voice you're hearing. Now, I must just make a little disclaimer. I am currently working from home, and I had a very stern conversation with my dog, and I told her that she has to be absolutely quiet, but she is a dash hound and she has a mind of her own. So if she does make a little noise, I apologize in advance. But I am so excited and so thankful to introduce Christopher, who is joining us from the University of Texas Health Science Center at San Antonio. And so he is the strategic sourcing specialist there, and he has over 20 years of experience working in the supply chain and sourcing industries. And Christopher brings a wealth of knowledge and leadership to organizations building strategic sourcing processes. So welcome, Chris, and thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
All right, and so just before we hop into the webinar itself and I turn it over to Chris, I just wanted to do a quick little overview of Bonfire in case you're not familiar with us. So our goal is basically to help procurement teams like yours and their stakeholders come together and make better purchasing decisions in less time. So although we're originally launched to make the bid and RFP evaluation more efficient, compliant, and user-friendly, we've really come a long way since then, and we do a lot more. So we currently empower procurement teams to build better relationships with features that are purpose-built to foster stakeholder engagement and teamwork. So it's all about that collaboration and bringing people together throughout the procurement process. And on top of that, Bonfire is actually the only strategic sourcing software that allows clients to leverage industry insights, benchmarks, and data analysis to make proactive and informed decisions. So in other words, Bonfire does more than bring procurement online. It really elevates your procurement team from administrators to your strategic partners. So at this point, I'm really excited to hand it over to Chris at UT Health San Antonio. They've done an absolutely phenomenal job of digitizing as much of their process as they can, and including one of the most sophisticated intake configurations use cases that we've seen. And they regularly use bid tables and questionnaires. They also utilize the public awards. though they don't always publish specific award details, just kind of the awarded vendor. But Chris is going to go into a lot more detail on that. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Chris. Take it away.
All right, thank you so much. How do I share my screen on this?
I will. So it's just the slides here right now. So do you want me to change the presenter over to you so you can go ahead and do that?
Yeah, so I can pull up the Bonfire app itself and go through
Okay. All right. Okay, here we go. So I have just given you the control, so you should be able to share your screen now.
that. All righty. So everyone should be able to see the Bonfire application now?
Yep, you got it.
All right. So, once again, thank you very much for having me. I've been with the University of Texas Health Science Center now for a little bit over a year. Came on board January of last year, and I was brought on board to help develop the strategic sourcing department. So with that, I was the only person to first be part of the project, and now I have a counterpart, and we're actually bringing on another person hopefully in the next week or two. So Bonfire was already here when I got here, but we didn't use it to the capacity that we use it in now. Prior to my arrival, it was just a way to get RFPs out on the streets, eliminate having to do a lot of manual processes, such as the opening of the bids, receiving all the bids, all the tons of paperwork, and so on and so forth that we used to have to receive. And calculating the bid table, because that is very time consuming. So with the move to Bonfire, we were able to eliminate a lot of stuff and started streamlining the processes. So right now, we have quite a few projects going on right now. We have 36 active projects currently in the works. And that's about normal for us. They range from, here we have after hours answering services to enterprise customer relations, which is going to be for our whole department. So we have quite a bit of stuff going on here because not only are we the university, we're also in the process of building a hospital. So there's a lot more stuff coming our way. I'm going to look at it. I want to look at one of the projects that we completed, which is going to be the customer relations management that I did last year for the School of Nursing and School of Health Professionals. So one of the things that I really enjoy about Bonfire is the ability to customize it the way that best works for you and your team. We're starting to use the cost management. For example, this was a project that didn't have a current spend. So there was no current spend or target spend, just what the budget was. So the budget was between $225,000 and $300,000. We came in at 238,300. So the great thing about it is here, it's going to show you if there's any savings, but because this was a new project, there was no savings, although we were underneath budget, which is good. With the files that you're able to upload, I like the fact that you can have your internal files, which we use because we have to use hub vendors here. This is also the way we used to do stuff. We used to actually send worksheets to each department for them to fill out. And then they would send these back and we would input all these into, here it is. They had to fill all this information out, then we'd have to use all this to input it into our system. So I'll show you how we got away from that now. We can have our internal files for us, and then our public files, which are accessible to all the proposers. We have our RFPs, we have our appendices, we have attachments, different types of thing, final agreements, all a bunch of fun stuff here. And what I like about them is that when they go in, each vendor, they can pull down the documents individually. We also have the ability to message with the vendors if they have questions, which is good. Instead of having numerous emails going back and forth, everything is just kept right here, nice and neat. You can set the deadline to where questions are accepted till. So when someone sends a question, you can just reply to them, or you can do a public notice, which is what we normally do. We normally collect a handful of questions before we send out. Here we have 3 clarifications on questionnaires. We usually collect about 10 questions before we start answering them, to not overindulge the board who's doing the reviews. You're able to assign your evaluation groups. Like I said, we have the hub vendors here in Texas. Then we have the departmental evaluation. You can assign what items that they're going to be responsible for. We also have contracts to do part of our evaluation, and then myself or whoever else is in purchasing team. You're able to assign people to each category. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are the 4 groups that we use. So we can assign them. Everything logs in when their last activity is. So if someone's like, oh yeah, I've already completed it, you can actually go in and say, oh no, you haven't. You haven't logged in at all since January 19th. One of the great things here about this also is when you do the requested items, these are all the items that the vendor has to submit for their proposal. You can see here, it looks like there's quite a bit. And this is an older project, mind you, and I'll show you what a newer project looks like, how we've been able to streamline it. We're able to assign the criteria, right down here, total cost, exceptions to term and conditions, quality of vendors, goods and services, our hub, reputation of vendor, meets the need of the university, and past relationships, a total of 100 points, and those are all graded by each individual area. The vendor invites, which is something that I really enjoy because we're able to get a lot more vendors than what our hub listing will provide to us. We put the NIGP codes in here, and then we add them, so that way any vendor who has already registered with Bonfire that has that NIGP code would automatically get the invite for the bid. There's also ways to go in here to invite other people, other vendors throughout Bonfire, and that's going to be up here in this vendors tab, and I'll show you that real quick. The submissions makes it very easy for submissions because at 3 p.m., which is our cutoff time, central prevailing time on whatever date, it locks the submission so no one else can submit. So that's really good it's really good. Scoring is very simple. Like I had discussed earlier, we used to have to do this by hand. Now it's all done through Bonfire, and it's going to list the vendors and the points that are assigned to each one of them. So it breaks it down, the total cost, and we just do the cost summary, and it's going to automatically assign points. We don't have to do any additional math for that. Same thing with exceptions, terms and condition. Once you put in a value, it's going to automatically determine the points that it's going to be assigned. So like here on the quality of vendors, goods and services, as the reviewers were putting the information in, it automatically calculates this all for you. So it speeds up the review time tremendously. Then you're able to have these reports, very simple, easy to read reports. We run both of these. One is the Microsoft Excel one, and another one's the Microsoft Word, and you can select what information you want or do not want. We download the whole thing. It just makes it easier for us. I mentioned earlier about the vendors. So here in Bonfire, like I said, they have a lot of vendors that have already registered with different NIGP codes. Shows right here, over almost 2,500 vendors are currently in here. So let's say you're looking for an NIGP code, which we'll say 831. It's going to pull up all the vendors that have 831 as an NIGP code. So it's going to allow you, if you have hub status like I do, you can select hub status. You can select all different things that you would like you want to know the number of projects that they've done. So a lot of them have done none, but this one has done one. Number of contracts, if they've won any contracts, all this type of stuff is very user-friendly to select those by. Then you can just download this and add it to your projects, where it has the projects where you can just enter in all these email addresses right here. Right into your projects when you go to the vendor invite. So it's a very easy system. It's a great way to get additional people, additional vendors into projects as well. One of the other things that we just recently, I say just recently, it's been probably about 4 months now, 3 to 4 months, we switched to the intake form. As I showed you before, we were having to fill out all this information and have it send it to the departments. The departments would send it back, then we'd have to input into a different system. There's a lot of work and a lot of stuff would get missed. So we were actually able to work with our point of contact and develop our own intake form. There's some questions that are mandatory that have to stay in there, but for the most part, I'd say probably about 85% of this was customizable, which was extremely helpful because being a government agency, state of Texas, teaching university, and an active hospital, we have a lot of different areas. So we're able to continue to update this. Like we just added this whole thing with IT that was just added a month and a half ago to help us. Some of the stuff is very specific, to some key departments that we work with to help us ensure we get as much information as possible. Now, we do accept these if they are not completed, just so we can get the process going. So we try to get we get more completed than we do not completed. The great thing about these is once it comes in, it's going to automatically, it's going to come in, it's going to look just like this. So this is a great feature. Everything's already here. We're not having to put it into a different file. It's already saved here in this file. Another great thing that we use the intake process for is approvals. So we have very specific guidelines when it comes to software. So we added a step in here. Instead of me downloading this, saving it to a Word document, and then adding that Word document to an email and sending it to IT, we can actually just go right over here to approvals, and we can go ahead and add an approval setup to this. And it will send it directly to that department or whomever email address we put in here. It will automatically go to them. So that way they're able to approve it here in this field without having to do additional emails. I'll actually show you an example of that. As the project I showed you earlier, there was a lot of attachments, a lot of different things. The way we do it now is much more streamlined. So our files here, we had the public files. This RFP is a pretty big one because it's campus-wide, but we have different numbering. Everything's a lot cleaner. It looks more organized, and it is more organized. So when the vendor pulls the information, it's going to download the RFP or whatever file they're looking at right there, and it will have it all there for them in a PDF format. So it makes it very easy for the vendor to take a look at things and to download everything. When I was talking about approvals earlier, so here we do a lot of approvals on this part of the RFP. We have a hub approval, which has to go to our hub vendor, our hub coordinator to review first, then our contracts, and then our assistant director of purchasing. So all their reviews and approvals are done here in Bonfire. So the great thing about this, once again, it's not numerous emails back and forth. They're able to send messages to say if there's any questions, they can attach stuff. So it makes it very easy. Everything is in one location, not having to worry about what file I put something in. Let me see what else. The insights, we haven't really dived into that much yet. But we are going to be doing that soon. Right now, we're collecting data on old RFPs to get that information. There's just a lot of great things. Everything is in one place. It makes things easier to access. You're not accidentally putting stuff in different folders. I really enjoyed. I came from the civilian world where we didn't have this detailed of projects. It was all about the bottom line. So coming on board to a state agency, Bonfire has made it extremely easy for me, at least, and my counterpart who came from the University of Texas, San Antonio. It's made it easier for both of us to do our job and do it very efficiently. So that's really all I have on that.
Awesome, Chris. Thank you. Did you want me to take the control back and go back to the slides, and maybe we can?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Awesome. Let me do that. I hope everyone is enjoying the presentation so far. Please remember that if you have questions, to put them in the Q&A box. And we already had a couple of questions that I was able to answer. They were really Bonfire specific, but please keep them coming. So I think, Chris, you covered kind of most of this already. And you did a really great job kind of talking about this and sort of what led to you guys going over to Bonfire and what you use.
Yeah, because we do get some public requests for information that people do want to see awards. That's one thing that we decided probably about 4 months ago is we only notify the awarded vendor, which you're able to, we do that via email because we have a very specific form that we have to use. So by having everything on Bonfire, my VP just sends me an email because they go to him. He just says, provide me this folder. And I just share it to him, share it with him via Bonfire. And it's super easy. He has everything he needs at his fingertips.
That's awesome. And Chris, we actually have a question that came in that I think you and I can both answer. Are you okay if we take the question now?
Sure.
Awesome. So the question is, how does this work with government procurement websites like Alberta Purchasing Connection or Canada's federal site? So if it's okay, I'll take the kind of first stab at it because it's Canadian around Alberta. So I think I know that the like Alberta Purchasing Connection, for example, I think you're able to post your solicitations on there. And in fact, I think you're required to do that. However, as Chris has shown us with Bonfire, you're able to kind of take that, do a lot of the things that you're not able to do through Alberta Purchasing Connection. So I don't believe that you are able to actually receive submissions through there, whereas with Bonfire you can. And then, of course, I don't believe that you're able to do evaluations through Alberta Purchasing Connection, whereas in Bonfire, again, you can. So it kind of works hand in hand. So you can still post, of course, on the Alberta Purchasing Connection or, Canada's federal site, and then kind of direct your vendors to submit through the Bonfire platform. Now, I'm not sure, Chris, if where you are at, you have anything like that, like government procurement website, and kind of how do you handle that?
We do. It's called the Electronic State Business Daily, which is ESBD. So one of the great things about working for a university and a hospital is we're exempt from a lot of stuff.
Lucky you.
Yeah. So historically, this is something that so I'm part of the UT Alliance, University of Texas. So we have locations all throughout Texas. So the ones that are universities like University of Texas at Austin or University of Texas, Dallas, Arlington, San Antonio, for example, they have to use the ESBD. Now, I do use the ESBD for RFQs and RFAs because we keep those totally separate because we don't do a lot of the RFAs. But in there, you are able to provide a link that, you basically what I do for those RFAs is I present a scope of work with a link to that website, which is not Bonfire, it's a different website. But you could provide a link to Bonfire we went that route, if we posted them on the ESBDs, I could put a Bonfire link to allow people to go to it.
Awesome. Okay. So hopefully that answers your question. But of course, if you want more information, please feel free to reach out to us. Okay, so we did already kind of go through this. You did such a great job of walking through your portal, and that's what we covered. So maybe now, Chris, if you don't mind, could you talk a little bit about future use and kind of areas of exploration that maybe you are hoping to get to with Bonfire?
Yeah, definitely. The insights, we definitely want to start diving into the insights a lot more because as everyone knows, purchasing is the reason why nothing's being done. But one of the great tools about insight, the insight that is available on Bonfire, it actually shows where an RFP is held up. So for example, we go through the process of the intake form, we get the RFP going, and we're sending out approvals to these departments asking them for input, and they're not replying. It will actually show that it's not purchasing, it's those departments that have dropped the ball on it. So we're definitely wanting to dive more into insights for that, for the reports. Like I said earlier, right now I'm collecting all the spend on previous RFPs. So that way we can start getting some real definite numbers to show savings throughout the year over year. We do additional reports here outside of Bonfire that I do use, which is my personal cost savings, but those are different routes that we do. But there's so many different things in Bonfire. We're wanting to continuously improve with our usage of it. Like I said, we added our IT department into the process through Bonfire so that they can review specific scope of work for us. We're looking at probably at the end of this fiscal year to start doing all approvals, including drafts through Bonfire to the department. We've tested it with one department, worked really well, but there are a few steps we want to change until we send everything. When I say everything, I'm talking about all the drafts that we do, all the communications. Before we switch it 100% to Bonfire, we still want to test out and tweak a few processes on our end. So basically, our goal is by the end of this fiscal year is to be 100% reliable on the Bonfire for all communications for RFPs.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate you giving us that overview. So I think if you're okay, Chris, we can turn it over to some Q&A.
Sure.
But before we jump into that, I just wanted to let everybody on the line here know that we actually recently introduced something that we're calling Bonfire Open Access Community Projects. And basically what this is that it's a free resources that we're offering to all public procurement professionals. So I'm sure you guys have all noticed that your workload is increasing. There's more price-only bids. There's more complex RFPs that you're having to run, and procurement professionals need the tools to get those solicitations out faster. So a lot of the time, that starts with you Googling some RFP templates or bid templates and things like that. So essentially what we've done is created this free resource that helps you surface those templates easily. So essentially you're able to search through tens of thousands of public projects by location, by project type, by organization, things like that. You're able to then essentially kind of never have to start a project from scratch. Those templates are available easily for you at no cost. You can see on the website there, on the screen there, where you can access the URL. And then the other thing is, if you want to, you can pull out your cell phone and scan the QR code that's on your screen right now with your camera, and then that'll take you to that page again so that you can access Bonfire Open Community Projects. It's just a really great resource for procurement professionals to look up those templates. All right, so I am really excited to turn it over to questions. Okay, so Chris,
Mm-hmm.
I know that you mentioned that when you arrived in your current role, Bonfire was kind of already in place. But would you
Mm-hmm.
happen to know if UT Health San Antonio considered any other procurement platforms before going with Bonfire, and specifically, what kind of key things were you reviewing when you were kind of looking at those platforms? And again, I'm not sure if you can answer it because I understand you weren't there.
Yes. I've talked to the lady who was kind of starting out the Bonfire process about this before today. So yeah, they
Awesome.
did look at quite a few others. I believe there was three others. She didn't remember all of them off the top of her head, but they did look at the ease, the use of the process, the ease of the process, what was on the future horizon as far as the development. That was key because they were just starting off and they didn't want something that was too overwhelming, something that they could grow with, which is what we're doing with Bonfire. As they continue to grow, we're continuing to grow our uses with it. Obviously price was a big factor as well. That came
Mhm.
down to it. I probably have about 5 or 6 different phone calls with different universities throughout the United States concerning Bonfire and how we use it. Um, So it's just, the cost, the use of the ease of use, the technology were the main things that went down into the decision to switch to Bonfire from
That's awesome.
handwritten.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Now, we do have a pretty active audience here. So another question is, can supplier performance be reviewed in Bonfire? And the kind of short answer from um, me is yes, you can do supplier performance in Bonfire. I'm not sure, Chris, if you guys use that feature at the moment.
No, we do not.
Okay. No, that's totally fine. But yes, the answer to your question is yes, you can do supplier performance in Bonfire. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Keep those coming. So the next question we have is, what does the training process look like for your team when you kind of started with Bonfire? And did you experience any resistance?
Yes, because the person who was running the show before I came on board, she worked in contract, so she was able to do a lot more than what I could because of her title within the contracts department. So we've separated it. We have the RFP process and the cost saving strategic sourcing, which is myself and my counterpart, and that's it. But we're still involved with different departments, especially contracting. Um, I'm sure it's the same everywhere we go. Contracting departments are very specific in the way that they do things. They don't like change, um, but they're open to change. So our department within our contracts, they were willing to make changes, but it wasn't the easiest.
Hmm.
Um, as far as training, I had the luxury of training my counterpart because he did not use Bonfire. They actually still did the old-fashioned way at the University of Texas San Antonio. So I had developed some internal processes, and the best way that he learned, he told me, it was the same way I learned. He watched. He had my notes. He watched what I did for 2 projects. Then he did a project, and I watched him, made suggestions, and then he was on his own. It also depends on the caliber of the person you're training, but it's very easy to pick up. It's extremely easy to use. It may look overwhelming, but it's really not. It's very user friendly, in my opinion.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Chris. Um, okay, we have one more question here, and this one seems to be kind of a hot topic. We've had the similar questions come up in some of the recent webinars that we've done, and it's around vendor diversity, Chris.
Mhm.
And so the question is, do you have to manage DBEs or like vendor diversity fields? And if yes, kind of what is your process look like around that?
So that'd be our hub, the historically underutilized vendors
Yep.
or businesses, sorry. So we actually, each of the universities, because let me backtrack, it's mandated by the state of Texas that we try to use Hub. We have to send everything out for Hub approval. So our internal process are, when I develop a scope of work and an RFP, I send that request to the Hub coordinator that we have. She will review it. She will look for Hub vendors, and she will provide me an email list of those Hub vendors. We take the additional steps of using the vendor invite within Bonfire to look for additional hubs, because she may not have them. They may not be registered within the state of Texas. They may be registered somewhere else. So we do that. We do have a Hub form that every RFP proposer must fill out and submit back with their proposal. She reviews that, and that's reviewed before anything else is released to any other department. I don't even look at the RFP when it comes in until she's approved it. Once she's approved it, then we're able to release the RFP for evaluation to other departments. So it's a huge process for us. I don't manage the process because it's so huge. We actually, every university has their own Hub coordinator. So he or she is responsible to ensure that we're within Hub compliance. It's so important for us.
Awesome.
I hope that answers the question.
Yes, hopefully. Okay. So we have another question here, just reading it. So do suppliers have the ability to upload contract documents in the Bonfire system? Example, certificate of insurance. If so, can an approval workflow be added to those documents? The kind of short answer to that is yes. And Chris, I think you spoke a little bit about your specific experience when you kind of talked about contract management, but can you maybe just provide a little bit more color here around the question?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we have the requested information that they have to provide with their RFP. But like I was looking at some stuff earlier today before this call, because I am doing a best and final offer, and I was going through their paperwork. And while I may have only had one item that you had to return, they returned 5 or 6 different items. So they can add additional items as long as you don't restrict it, which we don't, because some people do their submissions differently. But yeah, you can definitely add contracts to it. Our contracts departments work outside of Bonfire because they're not comfortable working inside of Bonfire. I would like to get them to switch everything into Bonfire, but we're not there yet. I still have to work on that. But you can be, you'll be able to do everything, including contracts within Bonfire.
Okay. That actually segues really nicely into the question that I have here. I'm not sure if it's the last one, we'll see. But the question is, do you use any other systems like ERP systems? And if yes, kind of like how do you use them in tandem? So yeah, maybe you just mentioned that your contracts team kind of does things outside of Bonfire. So maybe if you're able to speak about how, if you do use any other tools, and kind of how do you use them together with Bonfire?
They just use Word, and we have internal folders that they use. They're very old school.
Okay.
And they do a great job. I mean, it makes sense to them. So yeah, we don't use any other program. We only use Word or Excel.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's fair. That's really fair. Okay, so it looks like we've answered all of the questions that I had in the Q&A box here. Maybe we'll just give people another moment to ask any questions. Oh, okay, so we have one that speaks to Hub here. Can diverse suppliers Hub be viewed by searching suppliers, or do you also have to go to the Hub team for you specifically, Chris?
Can you repeat that question? I'm sorry.
Yep. So can Hub suppliers, like diverse suppliers, be viewed by searching like suppliers? Can you see them in Bonfire, or do you just have to go to the Hub team for that?
Yeah, no, you can definitely do that. If you want to let me share this, do you want to give me control of the screen again? I can show you how to do that.
Absolutely.
Okay,
All right, you
so
got
okay, so here in the vendors, can you see this?
it. Yep, you got
Okay,
it.
so here in the vendors, right here, sorry, you go right here, and you can select hub status, ethnicity, gender. You can select all of these, okay, and hide that. So right here, if you want to have the hub vendors, it will show you the hub vendors. And this is, I didn't even do a search. This is just hub vendors for yes. And as you can see, now if I were to go in and do specific NIGP codes, this would change. But this shows you just all the hub vendors that they have. Also, you can, like I said, you can do ethnicity and then the gender. So you can really drill down into however you want to do it, whatever best fits for your project or whatever your requirements are. So yes, you can do just by hub search.
Yeah,
But you
and
wouldn't,
sorry, go ahead, Chris.
but you would have to do a specific search to find out ones that were for that NIGP code.
That's awesome. Thank you for showing us that.
No problem.
But just to kind of elaborate, definitely, you know, there's been, I think, an increased prioritization of kind of including diverse suppliers within your process. And at Bonfire, we definitely try to make it as easy for you as possible to kind of achieve those goals, and then to also, of course, be able to report on your efforts. Okay, so let me just pull up my question slide back up again. But I think those are all the questions that we have, Chris.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for answering those in such a thorough manner. You were in the hot seat for quite a while there, and you handled it really well. So I think I speak for everybody on the line when we say we really appreciate that. Do you have any closing thoughts you want to share, Chris?
You know, I'm a huge proponent of Bonfire. I think Bonfire is great. You know, I'm sure that y'all will have other questions. Feel free to reach out to me through Bonfire. You know, I can answer additional questions. I understand, as you know, when you're in the shower or when you're about to fall asleep, a question may pop up. So just feel free to reach out to me. I'll be happy to answer any additional questions later on.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And we are getting some comments in the Q&A box there, just thanking you for sharing your experience, Chris. So again, thank you everybody on the line for joining us and taking the time to attend our webinar today. Thank you, Chris, for sharing your experience with Bonfire, and we hope you found this helpful, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yep. Thank you all.